We are live. We are live. And let's wait for some of the crew to show up. Meanwhile, I'm going to make an adjustment to the fire. Alright, everybody. Welcome to the Rift Online Church. Building God's Kingdom. And I'm just off camera here for a second. Turning my little stove fan around. Good morning and God bless you, Heather, Andrea, ahoy. I've been on a little bit earlier, but I had to tend to the fire and get it up and running again. And let's talk. I posted last night that sometimes on Facebook that sometimes God's yes is so quiet that we need to silence our own desires to hear it. And it made me think this morning. How a lot of times we're waiting for a loud answer from God. We want what God is going to do to be big and to be loud. Hey there, Kel. God bless you. And we're hoping for something loud from God, and it isn't always loud. What God is going to do in your life may be profound, it may be incredible, it may be great, it may be wonderful, but it may not always be loud. It may not always be noticeable. There are times where God will show off and he'll part the Red Sea, and show up with a pillar of cloud and a pillar of fire and kill the firstborn and all that stuff, a star over Bethlehem, all that, and God will do that. And God will do signs and wonders, but sometimes what God does is going to be quiet because some things are personal, some things are not meant to be public, and especially when God is grooming God. A lot of us, some of us are called to great things, but we want the great things more than we want to please God, and that's just the truth. And so sometimes God will have to do some quiet things to settle down your ego. And sometimes it's not even just about your ego. Some things don't need to be loud. The Bible tells us that Noah was a preacher of righteousness, but have you noticed that the Bible never tells us that Noah warned everybody else about the flood? I've come to the conclusion, and maybe somebody can prove me that I'm wrong about this, but I don't think Noah warned anybody. Because God wasn't planning to save everybody. He's planning to save Noah and his family, and that's it. And a bunch of animals. Think about that for a moment. What God did with Noah wasn't loud. We like to make it dramatic and think people were mocking Noah or making fun of him. We don't know that. Hey, why are you building a boat like no one had ever seen a boat before? I don't think so. And so we're led to believe that what happened with Noah was, I'm sure it was dramatic once it started raining and the flood started. But he spent more than a century quietly building a ship. And a lot of times God's going to have you doing some quiet things where you're not going to get a whole lot of attention because you're not intended to. There's some of you that God isn't going to have you warning everybody. That He's not going to have you teaching and training everybody. Because what God gave you is not for everybody. And that's kind of a harsh word in today's church, because in today's church we like to make it, we like to think that that we're all the same in the eyes of God, and we're not. There is a sense of equality. I suspect the only way we're all really equal is in that all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. That I know of. I don't know of any other scripture that points to us as being equal in any other way. Exactly. You got to be good with what He wants, and I'm saying that to say this, that that sometimes it's going to get quiet. Sometimes it's going to be very, very quiet. And not because you're hunting rabbits, but because God is accomplishing something in you. Some things are top secret. There's some things God has told me I'm probably going to have to take to my grave. Some things are meant to be a secret. We love to quote Amos 3:7, saying, surely the Lord God will do nothing except He reveals a secret to His servants, the prophets. And we forget, we like to think of that means the prophet is so special, and we get to know secret things, and then we go blab it to everybody. Some things are supposed to be a secret. The conversation that Elijah had with God in the cave, it wasn't broadcast from the top of the mountain. He didn't get on Twitter. It's between him and Elijah. It was the still small voice, and some of us were waiting for something dramatic. And it's kind of like how I saw somebody post a day or two ago about how in our group, Prophetic Maturity, some people say that, if God would just tell me what He wants me to do, I'd do it. And I had responded that a lot of times people say that because God has already been speaking to them. God has already been showing them what He wants them to do, just not in the way that they want to hear it, or just not what they want to hear, and they're hoping for a different answer. They already know what to do, it's just they don't want to do it, they want to do something else. Or they're hoping they heard wrong. So sometimes God's yes is very quiet. May not always bring you before Pharaoh right away. You may not go directly from the prison to the palace, so to speak. Not all of us are going to be Joseph. And that's okay. Because a lot of times and part of this is because of carnality. We one definite sign that we're still carnal is we want everything to be dramatic and we want everything to be exciting. And it isn't always. Because if you're relying on excitement, it means you're immature. So it's like, just like little children, to keep them on task, you got to get them excited. You got to make it fun, because otherwise you're going to lose their attention. Yeah, we're thrill seeking, exactly, just like Andrea said. And there are things that are going to be exciting. There are things that are going to be amazing. There are things that may shock and astound you. But I'm finding that most of what God is aiming to do in us is quiet. Because the greatest battle we all fight is not with anyone else. It's internal. Yeah, it's okay when it's quiet. A lot of times God's silence, or His apparent silence, is a signal to walk by faith. Because let's face it, if He told us everything, how often would we have to exercise faith? And I know I'll admit sometimes it's a little frustrating. There's some things I wish He'd tell me, but He doesn't. And I gotta make some decisions. And I gotta take some action and trust that He's in it, and trust that He's on it. And that's where being godly comes into play. It's like a lot of women out there looking for a Christian boy when they need a godly man. That's why it's important to have not just relationship, but you also have to come to some kind of knowledge of the truth, so that when God is silent, you know the right thing to do, that you know the difference between the holy and the profane, that you can tell between the unclean and the clean. So when you got to make a decision, you know at least for sure you chose what was clean, that you chose what was holy. And I'm not saying God is always going to be silent. Plenty times He's not. But it's a lot, we call him Father, and we forget that, our earthly fathers, I'm 40, I just turned 42 a couple days ago. And my daddy is not looking over my shoulder making sure I do what's right. He's not, because I'm a grown man. I can make my own decisions, and I'm kind of responsible for my own life. In fact, I live up here in New Brunswick in Canada, and he's down in Peru. It's a pretty good distance. That's probably at least a good 4,000 miles away. My daddy can't look over my shoulder. He can't say, he's not here to say good job, and he's not here to say, hey, stop being stupid, you're doing that wrong. That I better know for myself. I had some remodeling work to do in the house. We finally got the ceiling done, and I still got to do the trim. I had to put in the wood stove, and I just put in some flooring. I've never done that before, and I had no one to help me. There's the floor. That's I got a few finishing touches to do, but I had to do that myself because I didn't have the money to pay somebody else to do it, and I wanted to do it myself. So I got it at a great price. So I didn't have somebody here tell me, hey, you're doing it right, or hey, that's wrong. I had to figure it out. Thank God for YouTube and all that, but I had to make some decisions, decide on the colors and how we were going to go about it, and figuring out how to make it fit in this old houses. And something about old houses is that the walls are not square; they're not always plumb. You got bulges, and you got to make strange cuts to make things fit, and it's time consuming. It took me, I think, about 2.5 days to do it. I was making real good progress, and then I got to where the wood stove is, and that tile pad you saw there, I made that too. I had to put that together and put some pieces of plywood together to make the size I needed, and then put the cement down and grout it and all that, and then we installed the fireplace, and so I had to fit the wood, the flooring around that, and there were some very, very peculiar cuts I had to make to make it fit around it, and that row took me probably an hour and a half because of those cuts. You go little by little because you don't want to ruin your pieces, because you only got so much, and even when you get a good deal on it, it's still kind of expensive, and and this may come as a surprise to some of you, but God was also not telling me how to do this. And let me figure it out on my own. And something you got to understand about God is that His Word says, and I wish I could remember where in Proverbs it says this, but it says, it is the glory of God to conceal a thing, and it is the honor of kings to search out a matter. And we like to say that He made us kings and priests, but if we are indeed kings and priests, I hate to be the one to break the news to you, but you're going to have to search out some matters. You have to investigate some things. And it's not because God is cruel, and it's not because He's being mean, it's not because He's trying to frustrate you, but He's trying to make you. He's trying to get you to exercise what He put inside you. Some of you are so much more capable than you think you are. That's not that you're relying on yourself, but rather trusting that God has equipped you for what He gave you to do. A lot of us love to preach on Numbers 14 when the 12 spies came back and 10 of them were scared, and only 2 saying, we are well able to conquer this. These giants are going to be like bread to us, and all that other stuff. And it wasn't a boast, it wasn't bragging, it wasn't a confidence that they were such tough guys. but rather that they were confident that God was going to supply what they needed to get it done. And when God is quiet, this is something you got to remember. That if indeed you have placed your faith in Him, if indeed you have a relationship with Him, you have fellowship with Him, and part of the walk of faith is believing that He has equipped you. Now, I'm not saying to go about in presumption, because there's some folks, I forget who said it, but sometimes the most confident people are the incompetent. And those most competent are usually the ones who doubt themselves the most. But if you have been genuinely seeking God, you have a real relationship with Him, and you are walking upright, you got some equipment. You got to start using it. And I believe that if you do, you're going to find that that some of the answers you seek, He already put in you. I first started on Periscope. A couple of people who shall remain nameless told me I shouldn't be trying to preach every single day, or very often. I think they were afraid I'd run out of stuff to say, and what I found was I'm not. Been days I've come on here 2 or 3 times and don't run out of things to say. Why? Because God put something in me, He gave me something. Not because I'm so skilled or so studious or such a scholar of the Word, because I'm not half the theologian I'd like to be. But He's put something in you because He gave you something to do. That's funny, we see in the animal kingdom that the lion is not doubting whether he can take down the zebra. And sometimes he doesn't take down the zebra. Sometimes the zebra gets away. I've seen some documentaries where 3 lions pounced on a water buffalo, and the water buffalo shook them off and got away. Happens. But the lion knows that he is he's a killing machine. This is what he's made to do. It's like the man said in the movie. It was a cougar, but a mouse said the same thing. He said, if you're calm, she's going to be calm. If you're not, then that 4-legged death machine's going to do what God made it to do. He made him to hunt. Gave him the equipment. He's got the teeth, he's got the claws, he's got the muscles, he's got the reflexes. He's got the nice color where he blends into the tall grass. You won't even see him or hear him till it's too late. One of the things I like doing once in a while on the internet, I'll do a Google picture search or find the tiger. And all these pictures will come up where you have to try to find the tiger in this photograph. And sometimes it takes about 20 minutes to figure out where the tiger is, because they're blending in so nice. Why? Because God made them to blend in like that. The tiger doesn't. The tiger has to put some effort into it, but part of it is its nature. It's his design to be sneaky as all heck. There was a story years ago, I don't remember who it was, but there was a tiger that was being a problem in somewhere in Siberia, I think it was, and they went to hunt the tiger down. And after a couple of days, they made a discovery that the whole time they were hunting this tiger, the tiger had been stalking them. They didn't even know it. He's made to do it. And so I want to encourage you this morning that what God gave you to do, He made you for it. There are certain things about me, little peculiarities and idiosyncrasies that make me suitable for the task God gave me. Now, my wife sometimes doesn't like it when I get interested in something. I almost get kind of obsessed, and I've actually had people say his sense of commitment borders on obsession. I get interested in something, I want to become an expert. I will study it, and it's, maybe it gets a little overboard, but that tendency comes in very handy when someone needs an answer on something in Scripture, or when it's time to teach. That's not some kind of ability I developed. It's something, just natural propensity of mine. And you find it, I challenge you to take a closer look at yourself and the propensities that God put in you, not the bad ones. And even some of the bad ones are just distortions of something God put in you. There are people who are stubborn and obstinate, and it's because God gave them a strong will, and it needs some redirection. I remember, and I'm going to close with this, there was an Army sergeant who did a YouTube video that went viral, and he was talking about how they're changing the military and they're ruining the military because they're driving people out of the military that would be good for the military. He used some cuss words to describe these people types, basically people who are jerks, the alpha males, the troublemakers, the wise guys, and all that. And these guys are all kind of troublemakers, but you put them in the military, you subject them to some serious discipline, you redirect those alpha male tendencies, they become great soldiers. They got the equipment. They just didn't have direction. Take another look at your equipment. God did not leave you empty-handed. Take another look. Hope this was helpful. If it was, please feel free to share our broadcast. Visit us over at riftchurch.org. We're due for a big update on the site. I got to put a bunch of videos on there and other stuff. And so on and so forth. And meanwhile, everybody, God bless you and God keep you.